So when you fail and when you make a mistake, what should you do? Nothing, except keep moving forward. You've got to change the meaning of failure. And all failure means is there was a gap that you didn't see. That's it. Well, hey there, prosperity seeker. Welcome to another episode of The Prosperity Approach. I'm your host, Allyson Chavez, and always just tickled pink that you are spending some of your time with me and hope that you find it valuable today, especially because today I'm going to show you what to do when you fail and when you make mistakes. But first, before we dive into that, if you're listening to the audio version of this episode, please be sure you're following the podcast on your favorite app. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, smash that notification bell. I'm gonna channel the 20-year-olds that I see on YouTube and make sure that you're following us and notified every time that we're dropping another episode. And you can see what we're up to at AllysonChavez.com. Would love to have you join us in the Prosperity Experience Facebook group. And I am traveling and speaking now. So if you know of any events that my message would be a good fit for, I'd love the connection. And you can shoot us an email at clientcare@AllysonChavez.com. So let's talk about the dreaded F word that we all, especially as women, just try to avoid at all costs: failure. What do you do when you fail? What do you do when you make a mistake? We get so caught up in this, the idea of failing, that a lot of people don't actually do anything to be successful because they're so afraid of something that will happen if they will fail because of what we've made failure mean. It's been really interesting as I have worked with clients for the last 10 years or more that when we talk about this failure, this idea of failure and what happens if you fail, like what does it mean about you? And every single time, what I have found is we have continued to drill down and drill down and drill down. If they try something big and they fail in a spectacular way, it means that they're not enough, they're not good enough, they're not lovable, nobody will love them, and they'll be abandoned and they'll die alone. It's really interesting, the programs that we run and all of the societal conditioning that we have had over, thousands and thousands of years that make us so terribly afraid of failure. Interestingly enough, we get really afraid of success too for the same reasons. Instead of like, I'm not enough, now I think I'm better than, and somebody else will feel threatened and they'll come and destroy me. And therefore I will lose everything I have and I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving, I'm not enough, I'm not lovable, and I will die alone. It's just very curious. It's very curious to me. And I had this same kind of issue going on with failure, not to the point where I wasn't taking risks, but man, it was so scary. You want to talk butt clenching. I think my butt was in a continual pucker, especially when I first started in my business, because I was so terrified of failure and that I was going to get it wrong. And I did. And I failed over and over and over again. And I got it wrong more often than I got it right. But I got it right in a more powerful way than when I got it wrong. So when you fail and when you make a mistake, what should you do? Nothing, except keep moving forward. You've got to change the meaning of failure. And all failure means is there was a gap that you didn't see. That's it. We close gaps all the time. You ever got caught with a button undone on your shirt? You got a gap, or just we just tighten up the button. You had a zipper undone. You just close the zipper. You just find the gap. And failure says there was a gap that you weren't counting on. That's it. That's what mistakes are. And when I made that distinction in my mind, that's all failure is where are the gaps? We've heard like failure is feedback, and I'm like, yeah, it is, but success is feedback too. And both of them are valuable. But what success doesn't show me is where the gaps are. And failure shows me where the gaps are so that I can tighten those gaps. I can close those gaps, and then I can be even more successful the next time around. And we can do this in conversations we have with people, in our relationships, in our weight loss goals, in our desire to have a higher connection with God, certainly in our money and our business goals and our professional goals. You hear all of the big shots talking about, I failed my way to success. That's true. Like, that's not this fun little cliche. That's how you get successful. It's through failure. It's through being willing to experiment and willing to test and willing to get it wrong. And when I finally finally sat down, like I set down permanently my need to be right, and I was okay with getting it wrong, like the whole world opened up to me, because the way I was approaching life was as if I was in a sudden death match. And if I didn't get it right, then everything would go to crap. And then I would die. I mean, it's why they call it sudden death, right? The first person to make a mistake is out, they're dead, the other person wins. And so I was approaching life and success that way, that everything was in a sudden death match, until I gave myself permission to be wrong, until I gave myself permission to make mistakes, to let it be raw, to let it be messy, to let it be imperfect, to let other people think what I'm doing is nonsense. Like when I stopped caring about that is when things just really started to come. The ideas started to come. I could try that. And I started looking at everything as an experiment. Because with experiments, you get playful with an experiment, because you kind of have to, because that's the nature of an experiment, is we're just going to see what happens. I think this is what's going to happen. That's called, in scientific words, right, the hypothesis. I think this is going to how it's going to work out, but I'm not quite sure. So let's do an experiment, run some tests, and see if that is indeed what happens. And when I let myself experiment, I found myself totally loosening up. And then I went a little further, and I was like, okay, here's my big, huge goal. Let's see how close we get to it. I don't know. Is it possible for us to get here in this amount of time? I don't know. I've never done it before. So let's see. Let's see how close we get, and let's be open to the failures. Let's be open to the gaps, because what I have come to realize, and again, this is in every area of my life, that when I have failure, there is at least a little bit of success. The fact that you even tried it, even if it's an epic fail, is a success. I mean, a lot of people say epic fails are because I didn't meet my sales goal, or I didn't meet my soulmate, or I didn't like all of these reasons why it was an epic fail. But the fact that you tried it right there is successful. I found that in running this experiment, the market doesn't want it. All right. So that might be an epic fail for the product I want to create, but it was actually really successful in letting me know what the market is or isn't ready for, or what they are or aren't interested in. That's super successful, because now you don't have to waste your time on a course or a program or a product that the market's not interested in. You know, you could have this date with this guy that on profile and on paper looks really great, or your friends say, you know, he's fantastic. And like the conversation is flat, and he's boring, or you're boring, and or like whatever it is. And yeah, the date itself might have been an epic fail. You didn't find your soulmate yet, but you got some really, really great information. You got some really, really great feedback. You got more clear about what you don't want in a mate and what you must have in a mate. You found what some of those deal breakers are. Before I met Jeremy, I dated 80 guys, 80. And during that time, and this is when I was in my very young 20s. I mean, I got married when I was 20. And so like this was from the time I started dating, which was 16. I counted all the people that I had dated, and there were 80 that I had dated in a span of 4 years. And I'll tell you what, some of those dates were epic fails. As far as the guy I was with, I should do a podcast on epic fail dates, right? But I won't, not yet. But it gave me some really, really great data, and was a really great success in what I will not tolerate in a partner, and what is a non-negotiable in a partner, and who do I need to be in order to attract this kind of a partner. So yeah, like during that 4-year experiment with 80 different people, I got really, really dialed in on my spouse, and I did a spectacular job of choosing my spouse as well. We've been married for over 25 years now. We have 4 kids. And so not without its bumps along the way, of course. We've certainly had our fails in our relationship with communication and things. But when we're open to letting ourselves make mistakes and owning the mistakes, like finding, all right, there's the gap. All right, let's close it and let's move on. And let's try this thing again. And with these gaps closed, and see how far we get that time. It's been very, very refreshing for me. I talk to a lot of people who are perfectionists, and we wear our perfectionism like this badge of honor, but it's really an excuse not to go for our dreams because we're too afraid that we're going to get it wrong and we're going to mess it up. But when I set aside the perfectionism and really just let myself just see, let's see where it goes, there is such relief that comes from that. And I found myself very eager to try new things that felt fun, things that felt stretchy, things that, and instead of this like hucking mud against the wall, hoping some of it's going to stick, it's like, I've never tried that. Maybe we can reach people in this other way. I don't know. Let's see. And some of the things worked and others didn't work at all. But when I was willing to be like, yes, I'm willing to fall down. I'm willing to scrape my knees. I'm willing to tweak people's noses out of joint if that's what happens because I wasn't very eloquent in what I said or how I did it. Like, yeah, I'm all for that. And I became a student as much as or more than I was a teacher, because I just really want more skills. I want more marketable skills. I also want more inner game skills. I want to grow. I want to grow. And when you will finally choose growth over your desire to stay safe, that's when the whole world starts opening up to you. Now, does it open you up for getting hurt? Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've been taken advantage before in my business. I've been taken advantage of in my life. We all have. We've all had betrayal from one angle or another and one degree or another. But like, here's the thing, like, if you close yourself off from potential hurt, you close yourself off from potential joy and from impacting so many lives, even if that's the life of your daughter's friend who then impacts her life and her friends' lives and like changing your world. Before you change the world, change your world. And you do that by not being afraid to make mistakes and not shying away from making mistakes. Get your hands muddy, get the paint flung everywhere. There are erasers. There is other paint that can go over the top. You can redo that. Like, that's what life is all about. Life gets to be messy. And it's those times when it is messy and we're in that messy creative process where we get the greatest ideas, we have the greatest experiences, which can in turn lead to the most phenomenal results. So remember, failure just tells you where the gaps are. Close the gaps. Try it again. It doesn't mean you're not enough. It doesn't mean you're not worthy. It doesn't mean you don't deserve to live the life that you desire. It certainly doesn't mean that you're going to die alone. It just means there's gaps you didn't know were there. So don't make a big deal out of it. Just keep moving forward. And remember, always remember this: prosperity becomes you.